everybody. I am so sorry for the delay in getting started. I have to tell you a little story. I contact David right before we get started. Well, last night I contacted him. I said, David, are you going to be here? He said, yes. And then he says, I'm here. And I'm like, bro, you're not here. I'm in the studio. I'm seeing you. And he says, I'm still out of state. Oh, boy. So we had to retool everything. We had a technical issue. So that's why we're late. I want to say it's David's fault, but it's not David's fault. It's more my fault. I wasn't really paying attention, I guess.
Well,
I don't know.
It's partly my fault. And I've had two major events that kind of connect to this one. So first of all, congratulations to Taryn and Peter. They got married last week on Tuesday. That's
very true.
That is the last Tuesday. And I got to meet my family who's out here in Texas, meeting part of the family. So there's been a lot of kind of family connections. And I do maybe want to say something about my experience here in Texas. They love the United States much more in Texas than people in California love the United States.
Yeah, you think? And I have a big heart for Texas. You know why I have a big heart for Texas? My youngest son was born in Texas. And I got to tell you, I am very, very grateful to the great state of Texas for a lot of reasons. I think the people are amazing too, by the way.
So yeah, the people are very, really, really nice. I mean, more nice than the usual. And again, I'm Israeli. I'm kind of surprised. And just like the wannabe president, I kind of changed my accent according to the environment too.
Anytime I do that when I'm in Texas, they say that I try to sound like I'm from the South, not from Texas.
Well, I don't even know where I'm from.
There's a big difference with the draw, is what they tell me.
I did get to see some longhorns, and I did get to see a rodeo. And I have to say I was deeply touched by the fact that the rodeo started off with a song about America, the national anthem, and a prayer by a local pastor in the name of Jesus Christ on a public event that everybody paid a lot.
Bro, that's Texas. And I also have to say this about Texas, and I know that I'm going to offend some of my dear brothers and sisters in Carolina, and y'all know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about when I say Carolina. So I'm just going to say this. The barbecue in Texas. Well, all right, let me back up. The chili in Texas is 100 times better. The barbecue in Texas is a lot better. And I know y'all in Carolina are going to be upset for me saying that. But don't get me wrong. I mean, all your food over there in Carolina is the best. It's great. But I'm sorry. Texas got you beat down a little bit.
I had a steak yesterday that I could have landed a helicopter on.
Oh yeah, they're all that way. They're all that way. What are you? Where are you? Central Texas? Where are you?
Dallas.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yep. Dallas is a beautiful city.
Yep.
When you only are in the nice part of it.
Well, we've got a Holocaust museum down here, and there's what I was really surprised though is the whole cowboy, longhorn, stockyards, and they were kind of celebrating all the cows that walked all the way down to Fort Worth, and I'm saying, wait a minute, when they got to Fort Worth, what happened to the cows?
Yeah. There's a lot to say about that. But listen, folks, we are going to talk about a lot of stuff right now. I think that the stakes have increased. Speaking of stakes, I believe that the stakes have increased substantially in Israel, all over the Middle East. We're going to talk about that. We are going to talk about corruption in Israel, okay? Because I'm telling you this right now, I'm getting sick and tired of your attorney general. I'm going to just say that. And then the corrupt Shabbat, and we'll talk about that in a second. I have a very, very difficult time not to be conflated with Shabbat. Okay. I'm talking about the Shabbat. We're going to talk about them. And then we're going to talk about what is actually happening with Bibi, the internal politics, what's taking place, how that's going to affect what's happening in Lebanon, what we have coming in terms of the war footing that's beginning to change things all over Eastern and Western Europe, and of course, how it all relates to this situation that we're observing right now as we speak that's taking place not just in Lebanon, but what seems to be taking place in Iran. The head of the snake is hissing right now. So we're going to talk about all of that. There's a lot of good stuff to talk about there. But before we do, I do just want to acknowledge very quickly some of the super chats and the super stickers that are coming. By the way, when you guys do the super chatting and the super stickers, you help us out a lot. Just so that you know, we've been demonetized by YouTube 3 times over the last couple of weeks for different reasons, for specific videos. And so it's been an interesting journey to have to navigate through that stuff. So when you guys are doing super stickers and super chats and all that, it is a total blessing. So Brad, I think you've just done the last 2 here. Let me read those. First one, you say, Happy Thanksgiving, Bro James and Bro David. Since it is Thanksgiving week, I will give you a chat that won't get you in trouble. Thank you. But then I don't know, maybe the next one won't get me in trouble either. It says, you think they love Jesus and America and Texas. Bro James and Bro David, y'all should come to Tennessee, and the barbecue in Tennessee is the best. I don't know. I'm not trying to put down folks in Tennessee. I'm not trying to do that at all. But I've had some Nashville barbecue. And I don't know, kind of reminds me a little bit of the whole Carolina world. I'm just saying. I'll have to leave that there, Brad. You're going to have to prove me wrong. We're going to have to figure this out. And then look at... Oh, that's funny. Tell YouTube to go Fauci themselves. That's Dean.
That's a new one.
Where is David Stetson? That's a...
Yeah.
Oh, if you guys knew the half of Dean's wit, if you knew how how quick-witted these guys are, it would make you sick, actually.
Well, I can't really tie together the cowboy Jew kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, especially because the last cowboy Jews I remember, they were the Gadareans. That didn't work out too well for them.
Okay.
They was some pig herders. Y'all know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
David, the thing that's bothering me right now more than anything, we should get into this a little bit, is what is happening with this investigation, so-called investigation with Bibi. Can you explain to everybody the story of Shabak, what's happening, who they are, a little bit what's happening so that people are aware of what's going on? I mean, you guys have heard a lot of this already, but we should rehearse this because this is going to take us right into the Lebanon discussion.
Okay, so like every political system, we have our legal system, and legal systems are being used just like your political system here. Used as, I think you call it lawfare, and lawfare is using tweaks and turns and things in the judicial legal system in order to put forward a political agenda. And we watched this happen with Trump, with all of the indictments that have just now fallen through the floor. And we've watched it in other places. And the problem with lawfare is that even if it never gets to court, or even if it gets to court and is never dealt, the like we say in the Army, even if you miss the enemy, shooting at the enemy has an effect also. And I think that's what happened with President Trump. It's been happening with President Trump. That's what is happening now with Bibi. And they're pulling out all the stops against Bibi. Let's not forget that the judicial system in Israel is complicated, and we don't have a 2-term law like you guys here. So Bibi's been in power for a long time. He's accumulated a lot of enemies. A lot of people don't agree with his policies. So there's been a lot of tweaks, and the legal system, they're trying to use the legal system against him. Now, again, I think I'm not a great lover of Bibi, but I've kind of come to accept him. I'm still upset with him about what happened on the 7th of October. I'm holding hhim responsible as commander-in-chief in any case. But lately, I think Israel has realized that he does have a Churchill-style effect on what's going on in Israel. So his political opponents are standing up against him. And a quick reminder, I don't know if you remember, Churchill lost the elections immediately after World War II.
Yep.
He did.
Yep.
So we're seeing an effect like this. Let's go into what's happening. We don't have a how do you say a constitution the way you do. So
Yep.
our constitution is basically the Supreme Court and the legal system that is supposed to legalize political decisions. We've talked about the thing about with the Orthodox and the fact that the Orthodox are not serving in the military. Bibi, is, for instance, is buying the Orthodox with political concessions, and the legal system is saying that you can't do that. It's not allowed. There is a how do you say, justice before the law or equality before the law, and you cannot exempt large amounts of people from military service for political reasons.
Yeah, but can I ask you a question? Because I'm going to be hard on you with this. Because I'm gonna spit back a little bit on this. Okay, how can Bibi be accused? Because I know the term you're using, and I know this is going to get you it's going to poke you the wrong way. The term you're using is the mainstream media term that is being used in Israel right now concerning Bibi, right? And that's the whole idea of he's buying concessions from the Ben Gvir crowd, okay?
No,
But here's my
by the way, he's not
no,
buying in front of Ben Gvir.
but you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the crowd that feeds into where Ben Gvir is moving right now. Just think of the Temple Mount, okay? The hard right extreme. He's seeking to, and by the way, I want to make myself clear to everybody who's listening to this conversation. When we say the far right in Israel, it is nowhere close to the far right in the United States of America. The far right in Israel is a completely different ball of wax. We're talking about a dominantly religious, like a real religious fanaticism crowd that really, they get a lot wrong, okay? Well, and I'll just say that, right? As a believer in Yeshua, as a follower of Yeshua, I'm telling you, they get a lot wrong. But here's my thing, right? Every single flippin', and I'm going to use the word flippin', every single flippin' Knesset that's ever been put together has been put together with the same political expenditure that Bibi is using today.
Exactly.
Nobody, so when we say that he's, buying, what, look, I'm just telling you this right now. How about we talk about the whore that was in office? I'm going to call him a whore. The whore that was in office before Bibi. Why don't we talk about Lapid for just a second? Why don't we talk about Bennett? Bennett's probably the bigger of the whores. Okay, if you want to talk about going out and buying people, that dude really did buy people. That guy actually really did. Like, here you go. I'm at the bedside. Here's my money. Go ahead. That guy was so I'm just spitting back a little bit.
Okay, wait.
Because I don't think Bibi is nowhere near. Look, Bibi's a sophisticated political operative. Absolutely. Okay, I'm not taking that away. But come on, bro.
Okay, let's back up a little bit, and before I push back at your pushback, I'll say
I like the pushback. This is a Middle Eastern thing. This is what we do. Okay, go ahead. Okay.
Give me 2 minutes to explain the coalition. I'm not sure people understand.
Yes, sir.
As opposed to President Trump, who just now was elected, and he is now putting his cabinet together, and Congress is going to rubber stamp anything President Trump says. Bibi, when he is elected, even the last elections, has to make or create a coalition with other parties that will allow him to stay in power. I mean, think about, a president needs a certain amount of states to support him. Otherwise, he cannot be the president. So he makes concessions to these elements that need to keep him in power. Okay. And if they don't agree to keep him in power, then we go to a new elections and the whole thing started. And we've had new elections every year for the last, I think, 6 years.
Yeah, it's been crazy.
That's the situation. When I mean concessions, so Bibi says to a political party, I want you as part of my coalition. The political party says, I want you to pay for how do you say, gender affirming treatment for all horses under the age of 14. Okay, and he says, okay, then you will vote with me and everything that I pass. They say yes. He agrees to that. They agree to that. That's the way it works. Now, all of the governments, like you said, in Israel have always done that. The main concession dynamic that needs to be dealt with, because there's concessions on all kinds of subjects. The main one was the Orthodox. Orthodox are about 10 or 12% of the population. They don't work and they don't serve in the military. There's a whole reason for that. And the only reason that they can survive economically is by government funding that goes to their particular organizations. And
Yeah, your taxes.
Governments down through the ages have been willing to do that in order to stay in power, Bibi included, but Bennett and Lapid have also done the same. Okay, let's put it this way. Now there's a lot of public pressure, by the way, on the Orthodox issue because of the war. We've got regular Israelis doing 220 days in the army while they're trying to keep their career alive and they're trying to keep their families alive. And the religious are exempt from that. And a lot of people in the country are saying that's not fair. And that's become a political issue. So if the country, a lot of people were willing to say, okay, Bibi, and we understand that in order to keep the government together, you need to hold this together. But now this is a concession that it rubs Israel much harder than it did in the past. Okay, so there's different elements that are getting on that bandwagon, meaning not only the Orthodox parties, but different elements, even in the Likud, are using that because they do feel that there is a public concession on this and are pushing back on this, even legally, because basically you have to pass a law that says that one 18-year-old goes into the army at the age of 18. My nephew went into the army 2 weeks ago. And the other 18-year-old doesn't have to go into the army because he says he's an ultra-religious. That has to be kind of legalized in some way or form. And that's the, how do you say, the law war that is going on against Bibi. They're using these kind of aspects to push up against him. Now, after saying that, I'm going to say this. Bibi almost is willing to do anything in order to stay the head of the government. And I'm even going to add something even more. Even though I don't like the fact that they don't serve in the military, I need Bibi to stay at the head of the government right now with a government that he can work with. Because if there's anything I've learned, that even if I don't like him all that much, he has been the main factor in moving Israel from defense to offense that is actually changing the whole situation. So I might not agree with what he needs to do internally to hold the government together. I might not agree with the concessions that he needs to make to the Orthodox, but I do need Bibi to stay in power, and I'm willing to swallow 1, 2, or 3 frogs in order to do that. So that's my opinion. Was that
okay? No, and that's fair. That's something that I will concede. But the one thing that I will tell you about Yair Lapid or Bennett or maybe a few prior to him is that these men were not principled men. These men have no, they're within them is no drive to want to care for the condition of their country. That yes, you can argue that, oh well, they want what's best for Israel, but they're not. They're political whores. Like they want, at least the one thing that I will say about Bibi is, look, Bibi is a political genius in the sense that he is very good at obtaining power. He's very good at working through the system of politics within the government. But the one thing that I will say about Bibi is that Bibi is a very principled man. Okay, like you could talk about Yitzhak Rabin for just a second, and you could say that you didn't really, you may have not liked the way he maneuvered through the Knesset. You might not like a lot of the politics that he ran through, but the one thing you can't argue about Rabin, which is the thing that got him assassinated, was that he was a principled man. He did what he did. Even Ariel Sharon, when Ariel Sharon got up there, not one more missile and all that stuff. Look, he was definitely a principled man. He lived 73. He was, in the Sinai when it all happened. He's a very much for country.
He was the main instigator of the change in the Sinai.
That's right. That's 100%. So like you can at least see that. But we've been seeing lately a rise in Israel of a bunch of political whores that don't really care about the nation.
No,
Like it's crazy.
Okay, wait a minute. Hold that thought.
Poor guy.
That was a Texas sneeze.
It's so bad.
Okay, so let's do it this way. And it's very interesting because I'm now in the States. I'll see if I can illustrate the difference between Israeli politics and American politics, especially since we're at Trump round 2. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Trump round 1. Trump becomes president and he puts together the people that need to do the work underneath him. Okay. And last time, I don't know if you remember, he put in people like Pompeo. He put in people like Nikki Haley that we know who they are today.
Yeah.
Now, Bibi does it. Okay. Round 2, Trump round 2, he's already saying, I'm picking the ones. And he's picking them on a different criteria
100%.
Than their how do you say their political savvy.
Yep.
Okay. And that's why he's not going to have any Nikki Haley's in his cabinet, even though she's from the same party as him. Yep. That's why he's not going to have other people that will be that kind of stab in the back. So these are professional politicians. And one of the main differences between Trump 1 and Trump version 2 is that he is selecting his people. And because he has the support, he's going to put his specific people. Why am I stressing that? Because Bibi doesn't have that option or didn't have that. Okay.
He's got literally the whole. Yep.
In Israeli politics, he has to run and select the people of his cabinet from the people who were elected by the party. As opposed to Trump. Trump's elected his Ministry of Defense. He is not a member of the Republican Party. He's not a functionary in the system. And what Trump is doing is, like he calls it, he's drying out the swamp. Bibi still has to use swamp dragon in order to do what he's doing. And that's the main difference between our politics and your politics. What he can do, what he did, as he fired Gantz. Remember, Gantz is part of the Likud, but he fired Gantz. But he can't just select somebody else that he wants. He has to select somebody who is actually part of the political establishment of the Likud.
Yeah, but let me just say this about let me just say this about this whole thing about Gantz and Likud. He is. Maybe this is the best part of saying it. He is a member of the Bennett Likud. How about we put it that way?
Okay.
The Bennett contingency of the Likud. The contingency that says, I hate Bibi more than I love my party. I hate Bibi more than I love the principles that my party originally drove. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I'm not going to say, I don't think they hate Bibi that much. I think there's something else.
Oh, come on.
Okay, but no, I'll explain why. Well, first of all, let's put it this way. They're political players, okay? And I mean, this is politics, and I don't expect politicians not to be real politics, real cutthroat. But I'm going to say something else. No.
Okay, but can I cut you off before you say this? I just want. Okay. Yeah, how in the world can you say that Bennett doesn't hate Bibi when the same Bennett? This is the same Bennett who basically put together a criminal court system against Bibi to tell Bibi, we're going to throw you in prison unless you give us a promise you'll never get in politics again, and then I'll let you go and it'll be no big deal. He's a whore.
No. Bennett wants Bibi out of power. They do.
Come on.
And everybody underneath the power pyramid under Bibi, by the way, he's not the only one. I mean, granted. Okay, think about, I'll give you an American equivalent. It's really easy. It's fun to be on this part. Okay, so Trump is in power, but he has to put somebody like DeSantis in a cabinet minister because he is famous in the system. Now, DeSantis has eyes on the presidency, and he's not a great lover of Trump. Now, he's going to support Trump right now, but he's not a great lover of Trump. So he will use and twirl and wiggle every little asset that he can in order to make Trump look bad and in order to bring up his shine in incoming. Now, DeSantis is part of the Republican Party, but he is no great lover of Donald Trump. And I think that would be probably a correlation. So they are playing, and again, I did I ever tell you the story that I got to sit on the meeting between Yitzhak Rabin, Ariel Sharon, and Shimon Peres?
No, you never told me this story. I would have loved to have seen a meeting like that. Holy smokes, that must have been crazy.
Well, here's the thing. I'm a little baby tour guy.
Did they try to kill each other?
Well, here's a surprising thing. So I'm bodyguarding the Israeli ambassador in Paris, and all three of them were in Paris. So they come and have dinner with the Israeli ambassador in Paris at a very famous restaurant called Le Tour d'Argent. Long story short, private room, all the security. I'm part of the bodyguard security, and I'm sitting in the room with the three of them. Now, I don't know if you know, Ariel Sharon was the Likud party, hated by the Labor Party.
Oh my goodness!
Peres
yes.
and Yitzhak Rabin were rivals inside the Labor Party, and they hated each other as much as they hated everybody else.
Yeah.
Okay. Ovadia Sofer at the time was the ambassador, and I'm the fly on the wall. Okay.
Goodness
but here's the thing: I thought they hated each other. They were broing out like four guys from the tank crew of the 2nd Tank and the 3rd Battalion ever since we were kids. Do you remember this?
No way.
And what we do is this. And I remember when you were climbing up the hill and I carried your backpack when we went in. They were totally, all four of them, broing out like crazy. And I'm sitting there and I'm saying, if the press got a hold of this, it would be amazing because think about this. They all grew up together in a tiny little country fighting the same war of independence, the same 6-Day War. I mean, again, on other sides, they pose, they virtue signal, but politicians are politicians. And literally, I was sitting there amazed saying, if I could make a picture of this, they were all sitting back with the red wine they were all drinking at the time, having a wonderful time. And what I'm trying to say is this. Politics are bad, James. You know this. And we've seen versions of this all over the place. Israeli politics are no different. And Bennett is going to use every piece of ammunition that he can. But let's go back to this.
Good luck, Bennett.
Say this again. Bibi has saved Israel. I'm blaming him for putting us in this situation, but I'm also blaming him for saving Israel. And I want to go to what's changed in the Middle East, what's changing right now as we speak, and explain that if it wasn't for Bibi, we would be in a completely different situation.
100%.
And I mean, somehow, what do you call it? The Trump derangement system?
Yep. Trump derangement syndrome. That's right.
TDS, I think you call it.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. What I'm trying to say is there is a Trump effect scenario, okay, or a TES, if you want to put it that way, that is happening right now. And there's so many things happening on so many different levels that I think it's important for people to see how in the little, how do you say, in the little world that I live, which is Israel, Israeli politics, Israeli geopolitics, Israeli military, how your voting for President Trump has been amazing to Israel, even right now before he's in office.
Yeah.
And I would really like, after all of the weeks that we sat and we said, vote for Trump, support Israel. I want to show you that how this support for Israel actually has played out. And it's played out amazingly. Now,
undoubtedly.
We've got a lot of things that are still problematic, but the Trump effect, okay, has rippled through the Middle East and is still rippling through. And I think it's important for people to understand what's happening.
No, I agree with you. Listen, I completely agree with you. And I'll add to the illustration you gave, because I can actually see that environment. Like, I could see all those guys sitting around and, enjoying one another's company and laughing and so on and so forth. And I would be willing to even say that Bibi with some of those older countrymen would be in the same spot. Like, that would be the case. I can't see that happening with guys like Bennett. There's just no way.
I know.
There's something that's rotten. Bennett sits with the trans, he sits with the hard leftist, globalist mindset. He's more akin to UNRWA than he is Israel.
I'm still choking on that one because I haven't met him personally, but I know a couple of people who have, and I do feel that he does. I mean, the guy has been on the sharp end of the spear for a long time.
David, when you go, when as prime minister, you go to the international community and you basically beg the UN to play in the sandbox with Israel because you want to show them what it's like to move around in the global world at the expense of selling your country like a whore. I'm sorry. I look, God bless Bennett. I'm telling you, I hope I'm wrong about him, but I just cannot see. I can't see past how vicious he is right now with Bibi. And look, I don't blame. Look, me and you have had conversations where you have made some vicious statements about Bibi, but at the same time, you've been brought to tears, literally, like wiping away tears, talking about him and his brother, the one that died, Yoni, or talking about, the Netanyahu family. So when I talk to you and you tell me about how you disagree with this, or I see a guy who could sit down with him and have a cup of coffee and laugh and play and hug each other and love on each other, and you could pray for him. Like, I see a different person in you. I see a guy who has a genuine heart, not only for his God, but a genuine heart for his country, and he loves real countrymen.
Really?
Like real men who have the same heart and same mind, except a different philosophy about how to get it done. It's different from the Bennett crowd.
Okay, I agree, and let's keep on the illustration because I like this. The Trump effect that you're seeing, where we understand today that Trump is for the United States of America, but let's put it between me and you. He's not the kind of person I would want to marry my sister.
I mean, because of the lifestyle, the busyness, the huff and puff. Yeah, you're probably right. I don't think I'd want.
His moral codes, or at least in the past, have been very, very different. Okay, and he wouldn't probably be the first pick of a born again Baptist pastor. Okay, from all the different picks. So again, but as you realize, I mean, no great leader. I mean, Alexander the Great, we know a lot of things about him today. We know about Churchill, all kinds of stuff, but they were actually critical in making major changes in the world that moved the world in a better place. I mean, I'm staying with a family here in Texas. The host here has a deep knowledge of World War II history. And, he's been telling me some stories about General Patton that, kind of wax people out about, and
I mean, look at King David. King David went out and took a whole bunch of foreskins off of men after killing them just so he could marry Michael. And then when he is looking upon another woman while she's bathing, he wants to be with her so bad that he gets with her, gets her pregnant, and then one of his top commanders, who happens to be married to her, he has him killed so that he doesn't get found out. And this is a guy who's called a man after God's own heart.
So we're not selecting leadership only by their personal morality, okay, if you want to put it this way, all right? So
Brandon,
again, I'm not going to select Bibi because of his some of the opinions that he has, but I will say this. What's happening now in the Middle East is a direct result of Bibi standing up to all of this and against all the odds, actually holding up to a resolve that I'm not sure I would have. Maybe you. I'm not sure I would have to stand up against everything, holding what I believe is true, no matter what everybody says to me, no matter how crazy it is, and no matter what it costs me. Okay.
Yeah.
And making the basic major change that Bibi has made in what's going on today. So that being said, and again, I know what you mean about Bennett, and I'm going to say this: President Trump has people like that in his surrounding too.
Oh, no doubt.
Every political situation has that. And come on, me and you know the church system, that even in churches
Come
there's
on, bro.
politics on this level and this. But let's talk about what's going on, because I think this is critical. I think the people want to hear what's going on actually in what's changed since the last time we talked, which is a major list of change.
Oh,
You
yeah.
want to hit it off?
Yeah, so we have some big issues, okay? So let's just talk about the political environment for just 1 second in Israel that's changed, which has led to all of the other changes, okay? Number one, you have a guy who was on the verge of losing his political career as a result of the terrible things that happened on October the 7th, who now has become by far the most famous figure in Israel right now. This is a guy who goes and meets Bibi. He goes and he meets with a whole group of people in the IDF. They all stop and they start chanting Bibi's name, right? Now, it is funny, if you notice the media story, they only showed the picture of the one guy who said, "Shame on you, Bibi." I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
If they show that. But the one guy, right? But everybody else is, singing his praises. You've got the country who absolutely trusts and loves him, and then the rest of the world is seeing the writing on the wall, because they not only see the fact that they can't manipulate the general public anymore, right? But they're also beginning to recognize the fact that they're running out of landscape because of the fact that President Trump is coming into office. Like, right to the point where you're even beginning to see them not being able to get away with some of the stuff that they're doing now. Like right now, they say things like, bring them home. You hear that phrase a lot, bring them home, bring them home. Of course, as you know, when you say bring them home in Hebrew, even in English for that matter, the indictment happens to be on Bibi and not necessarily on Hamas. Because when you say bring them home, you're basically implying that Israel has the power to be able to bring the hostages home, when in reality, that doesn't really exist the way that they seem to imply it. So when you see me wearing this, and this says our hearts are in Gaza, and then it says bring them home now, the bring them home now has absolutely nothing to do with the way that the media is putting it out to be. When I say bring them home now, it's not an indictment on Bibi. It's actually a call on Bibi to say, you know what? Get harder, do what you have to do, blow whatever up you have to blow up to make sure this thing gets done. Now, with all that said, what that has done is that has put a lot of people in a very different position. Hezbollah was by far the second most powerful and well-organized terrorist organization in the world outside of the UN and UNRWA, okay? Just a few short months ago. You have Iran, who was in a relatively advantageous position. You have Hamas, who now we're finding out. By the way, I don't know if you saw this, David. I'm sure you did. But now the United States of America is finally admitting that they never, ever saw a single sign of Hamas turning around and willing to change their mind with the hostages. That every single thing that they were twisting Bibi's hand to do was an appeasement mechanism in hopes that Hamas would change their mind. But nobody in Hamas changed their mind. Nobody gave up. So what does Bibi do? Bibi does correctly what he was supposed to do. Bibi decides there's no way I'm getting help from the international community on this. There's no way our people are going to be safe if I don't fix this. He starts with the Philadelphia corridor. He demands that Israel stay in the corridor. And when that moment happened, then he decided to start beginning to ignite many of their clandestine operators. It started with Ismail Haniyeh. Actually, I would argue that it started with Abdullahian and the president of Iran being killed in the helicopter first. Then it went on to Ismail Haniyeh, who was killed in Iran. And then we gave it a little bit of a pause. Iran did the stupid things that they did. I think that Bibi was hoping that the United States of America, under the regime of Joe Biden, would say, okay, they launched a bunch of missiles towards you. Now go ahead. You just, break out, blow them the heck up. And then guess what? That didn't happen. Restraint. Then what ends up happening is Bibi says, okay. Then Bibi says, no way in the world we're going to get any favor here. We see the tide turning. It's very likely Trump is going to come into office. But if he doesn't, and Kamala does come into office, we're going to be in big trouble, so I'm acting now. So what happens? Ismail Haniyeh dies.
James, let me back you up, because there's a couple of things that I think are important here. And if we're talking about Bibi, we have to understand a couple of things that Bibi has led and been the figurehead for, that I think are a major shift in Israeli mentality, and Bibi actually represents this. Shift number one, and people don't realize, we crossed the 850 soldiers lost in this war yesterday.
Yep.
Now, if you'd have gone back to Israel 2 years ago and said, we're going to lose 850 soldiers in the war, Israel would not have agreed to go to war.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bibi has somehow managed to keep this war going while we're paying the price. Now, I don't know if you understand why that's important. The basic aspect of the Hamas mindset, or the Arab mindset, is, and I think you've heard this said before, we celebrate death and you celebrate life. And because
Yep.
you're afraid of dying and we're willing to die, we will always overcome you. And what
Yep.
Israel has said under Bibi's direction is that we are willing to go in even if it means paying a price.
Because how he's incentivized Israel.
It's not even the
Bibi.
he's
No, it is. It is. He's telling Israel, he's showing Israel, give me the leverage to allow our soldiers to die, because I promise you I'm going to end this once and for all. There's not going to be any more, if one more rocket gets fired. And he's been faithful to show that, right? I mean, am I wrong about that?
No, but on the other hand, there are people who have blamed him for the blood of the soldiers. I mean,
Of course.
he has to be able to deal with that. Two, he has somehow bent and not broken under international pressure. Even though the rest of the government would have stood up in threes and bent down to international pressure a long time ago, he has managed to wiggle a route through bending but not breaking.
So true.
And I don't know if anybody else could have, on one hand, agreed and maneuvered the Biden administration that they didn't close it down completely, even though they really wanted to, but on the other hand, has not given up on the needs. Three, think about what the hostage situation is for us. And he has managed to take all of the hatred, okay, of that, and still stand fast to what needs to be done. Because the hostage situation is a very emotional one for us. And he was literally, I mean, he's being blamed. Now, again, Bring Them Home Now is the Jewish version of Ceasefire Now in the States, which means that you're throwing all of the responsibility only on the responsible actor and not on the disresponsible terrorist who actually started this situation. But Bibi has managed to weather that correctly. Again, I'm not going to let him go for this. I still blame him for allowing us to get hoodwinked on the 7th of October. He thought that appeasement would be better than what he is doing now. And I think he was one of the first ones who got up the idea. But we owe him that. So all of this is happening way back. What we're seeing now is a result of all of that.
Yeah, and that's why I was bringing up some of these events, because the timeline helps the American crowd that isn't familiar with Israeli politics, to really develop an appreciation for what's going on. You have Ismail Haniyeh dead. Then you have Bibi going to the UN, and forgive me for saying this, he basically tells the UN to shove off. Yeah. He addresses them. He didn't even want to go, but he does it. And then if you notice, when he leaves his address, he leaves relatively quickly, because he knows he has about a few minutes before we know that Hezbollah is pretty much going to be done, because he's going to kill the leader of Hezbollah. At the time that he's walking off, at that point, that guy's dead. So that ends up happening. And then all of these people that could fill in the spots all die around the same time. And then you give it a few weeks, and then it's Operation Grim Beeper. And then you give that a few weeks, and then Iran responds because they lose their mind. Of course, Bibi's expecting for that to happen. And then Bibi takes some time, and then he responds. And now we're finding out, just 3 days ago, we're finding out that Israel in that attack destroyed several nuclear facilities. So it's like you look at this and you realize, okay, so now we find ourselves in a position where Iran realizes whether or not I want to admit it, whether or not idealistically I like it, I have to buy time to be able to rebuild and live another day.
Well,
Yemen is freaking out. Saudi Arabia is feeling enabled to be able to deal with the problem on the southern portion of the Arabian Peninsula. You have Trump, who's coming in office, who says, y'all better not. You have the Arab world, who's beginning to find a new sense of confidence, at least the Sunni Arab world, who's finding a new sense of confidence in a new coalition that they can put together, with the United States not being at the head of it, but the United States being a major player in it. And then you've got, on top of all of that, Hamas, who's done now because, of course, as we know, Sinwar is dead. You have the new...
There's more than... okay, think about this from Hamas's point of view, okay? If the agreement is signed... Well, the Israeli government is going to sign it probably today in Lebanon.
The Lebanese ceasefire agreement.
The Lebanese ceasefire.
Yeah.
What that does, and we'll go into the Lebanese ceasefire maybe to explain a little bit, but what that has done, first thing, more than anything, has disassociated the Lebanese war from the Hamas war in Gaza. Now, for the last year, they've been saying, we will not stop firing till you kind of reach an agreement with the Hamas. They actually tied the two theaters together. What our pressure on Lebanon and on the Hezbollah has done, and don't forget, it's not only taking out Nasrallah and the whole higher echelon, it's not only the Grim Beeper, it's today 5 different skyscrapers were brought to the ground in Dakhia, which is the Hezbollah area in Beirut. So there's a lot of pressure. And what Bibi has realized is that negotiation through pressure is better than negotiation through American pressure.
Yep, so true, so true.
It's so.
And your grasp of military stuff is just unbelievable. I think you've forgotten more about military analysis than I'll ever know in my whole life.
But here's
and some of that stuff is just brilliant. I mean, you're right. It's an interesting aspect to come from. But anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead, because I've got some new dots connecting in my head with the last point that you just brought up. But yeah, go ahead.
The disassociation, the disconnect between Hamas and Hezbollah. And to a certain extent, I think it was a week ago, we heard the president of Iraq.
Such a good point, man. Such a good point. Yep.
The president of Iraq standing up and saying, we will not allow non-government players to shoot rockets at targets that we did not associate it with. Okay, so you've got all of that. You've got the unraveling of the whole axis of resistance. And now what's happening? Sinwar is dead in Gaza, but his replacement has to realize that the war in the north and the war with Iran is not going to save the people of Gaza, which is why right now Bibi is in a better position to reach a hostage deal, okay, than he ever was in before. Yeah. So again, I think, and again, I can't help but connect to Churchill. Churchill realized that if he gives in to Germany, okay, it's going to come out. But let's not forget that Bibi took a huge chance. They threw 350 missiles, rockets, and things at us. And if more of them had gotten through, and there had been a massive massacre in Israel, the whole situation would have been different. And they didn't 100%. Do it once; they did it twice. So I'm not going to use military terms, but we needed somebody who was both able to stare the enemy down and had the, what should I call them, in order to be able to take the chances that he took. And I don't think anybody else could have done that. By the way, Churchill did the same thing. The Battle of Britain, which was a critical point in World War II, was this close from being lost. I don't know if you can see on the wall behind me are some beautiful paintings of Messerschmitt 109s from World War II. And that were the how do you say, the bane of the American and the British Air Force in World War II. There's an interesting story connected to Israel if you want on that one at some point. But
yeah, again, absolutely.
Bibi had to hold all of that together and be wide enough, with wide enough shoulders and big enough whatever's, okay, in order to be able to do all of this in the situation we are now. And then as a bonus, we got Trump.
Yeah, I think probably the big take home for me, just from the segment that we just had right now, is the disassociation. That's a very good, that disconnect is a very good, it's breaking the arms of independence or the arms of dependence that existed between these countries. And by the way, I think the more I think about it from a geopolitical perspective, it becomes even more substantially brilliant by Bibi, because that has everything to do with what MBS is looking for.
Exactly.
MBS is looking for the independence because Saudi Arabia badly wants to enter into normalization with Israel. And because they know there is an economic incentivization that exists, and the modified trade routes that they want to build up, they can't if they don't have not only the normalization, but the security agreements that go with it, the security guarantees. And they're not going to get that unless they're able to effectively separate the problem of Gaza, not even Gaza, the Palestinian problem and the Islamic Brotherhood problem. And by the way, I think that's the whole reason why Erdogan is losing his mind right now so much. The reason why he's beating up Mahmoud Abbas, and the reason why he's making a bigger, trying to build a coalition that surrounds Gaza, because I think the only avenue that the Islamic Brotherhood has is now Turkey. They don't have Egypt anymore because of what Abdel Fattah al-Sisi did. They certainly don't have Jordan. They don't have Syria. They don't have the effect that they used to have, not even close, in Gaza anymore. They don't have any of the Mediterranean outliers that they had with Hezbollah, because they're more of a function of the head of the snake, which is Iran. The only place that they may have an option is through, of course, Erdogan. Because Erdogan himself, who, although lots of people say, well, he's not a real idealistic, he's not a religious man, but baloney. He totally is. And not only is he that, he is Islamic Brotherhood in Turkey.
Okay.
So that might be their only option.
So let's tie this together in a different way. And again, I think you're going to really, really appreciate the peace agreement. Or no, it's not called a peace agreement. It's called a ceasefire right now between Israel. It's called a truce. Sorry, that's the actual term that's being used.
Yeah, that's what they're using. Yeah.
It's called a truce, and it's for 60 days. Now, whether it lasts more than that, it's already achieved something very important. And I think you're going to appreciate how this kind of reflects to a bigger picture. What it has done is disassociated the problem in Gaza with the problem in Lebanon, but it's done more than that. Do you understand that the Hezbollah had to get an okay from Iran to sign this agreement?
Oh, 100%.
Which means it is also unraveling the Iranians' power over other players like this in other places.
Oh, sure.
Okay, so and what it's doing is what Israel is doing is saying, okay, we will deal with the problems, but let's deal with the Hezbollah as a problem with Hezbollah. Let's deal with Iran as a problem with Iran. Let's deal with Gaza as a problem with Gaza. Now, why am I making an issue about that? Is that's what President Trump did with the Abrahamic Accords. And this lines up with the same dynamic. Trump came and said, yeah, you're saying that the Palestinian problem is connected to the Saudi problem, connected to the Syrian problem. No, let's deal with the Saudi problem with Saudi. Yeah. Let's deal with the Palestinian problem. And that disconnect allows us, okay, to put pressure on each one of these straws separately.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay. And this is classic Trumpism. This is classic Trumpism, and it's interesting how this ties in with the rest of the situation in the Middle East. Bibi, Trump, by the way, there's a couple of other ones. What's the name of the guy in Hungary who's very, very clear?
Yeah.
What's
That's
the guy
right, the Christian guy.
What's the name of the guy in Holland that is very, very outspoken? We're starting to get a new tier of leaders, okay? We're going to call them right wing. We're going to call them conservative, but no, I'm going to say that play less of the political and more of the power.
Yeah, you're right.
Power that we're seeing. I mean, what are all the rest? What are the Houthis watching about what's going on with Hezbollah? What are they saying right now? I mean, if it comes to this, then Iran isn't going to help us.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I think that's why we're seeing what's going on with UNRWA.
Oh yeah.
I think the UN is trying to flex their terrorist arms in an attempt to continue on with the existence of the Palestinian state so that they can use their arm of leverage to fund all their other activities. That's exactly what's going on.
But here's another thing. This put pressure on Qatar. I mean, what happened? All the Hamas leaders left Qatar. And you know why
but Qatar saw the writing on the wall.
You know why they went to Turkey.
Of course we know why they went to Turkey. I mean, that makes a lot of sense why they would go to Turkey. They went to Turkey because Erdogan wants two things. Number one, he wants to erect the Ottoman Empire. They see an immediate opportunity to utilize Turkey because Turkey is the second largest military in NATO. They're a member of NATO. So the flex option that they have is pretty remarkable. But even more so than that, they actually have a safer place to go nest themselves in on a whole bunch of levels, and they're taking advantage of the opportunity that exists. What Turkey doesn't realize, which they will realize it very, very soon, is Turkey doesn't realize just how bad their country's going to get pooped on when they allow these leaders to come in there and sit there. And if I were Erdogan, even though I think Mahmoud Abbas is also a pile of garbage, if I were Erdogan, I would listen to Mahmoud's advice and say, keep them the heck away. Don't let them in.
Okay. So I'm gonna kind of level down one more. Okay. Why Erdogan wants them in Turkey is one question. I'll get to that in a minute. Why they want to go to Turkey is they know that they have a huge bullseye on their back. Each and every one of them.
100%.
Now, if they went to Egypt, I don't think Israel would have a problem taking them out in Egypt.
You're right.
If they went to Bahrain, if they went even to Syria and tried to disappear, we would have reached them in Syria. The only thing that is saving those men's lives right now is the fact that Turkey is a member of NATO, and it would impact the United States if Israel takes them out in Turkey. So I think
I wholeheartedly agree with you.
I think that the only reason they were willing to go to Turkey and not anywhere else, okay, is because they believe that Turkey's connection to NATO and the United States will save them more than they would be saved in it, because there's nowhere else in the world that they would be that safe. Well, maybe European countries or American countries. I don't know.
I think you're right. No, I think you're right. But there's one grave error they're making about that, right?
Oh, yeah.
And this is the one that you will be well aware of when I mention it, one that I'm well aware of, one that many people who are astutely looking at this have to be well aware of. The grave error that they're making is, although they might believe they have a safety position being in Turkey because of what they perceive as the lack of willingness by one nation to unilaterally act against them from within that sovereign territory, what they did not take into account is they did not stop to consider what was all involved in the destruction of that helicopter that actually came out of Turkey. And what that means is that Mossad is alive and well in Turkey.
Oh, no. The Mossad is alive and well in Turkey.
Our reach in Turkey is very, very alive.
No,
very
the Mossad
alive.
is alive and well in Turkey, and the Mossad can take them out in Turkey just like it can take them out anywhere else. I'm not that. I'm thinking that there's one thing right now is that I think Biden has made it very clear to Bibi that you don't take them out in Turkey. That'll make me look bad. But I think they know and I know that when Trump is in office, I can see this phone call. Erdogan, they're in Turkey still? Yes. Listen, I'm going to tell Israel, okay, either you get them out or I give Israel the red. I'm not going to make it public, but I'm going to give Israel the green light. So either you get them out or I give Israel the green light. Trump will do that.
No doubt. He's probably already done it.
Yes. He's probably waiting. I'd be very interested to see if they stay in Turkey after Trump comes into power.
And the only reason why Erdogan will give the time of day to Trump is because Trump did something with Erdogan that he did with the North Korean leader. And that is he gave Erdogan very public legitimacy by sitting down and having a conversation with him. Okay. Which, by the way, is what any good world leader who's the leader of a powerful country should do. You should sit down like the daddy and say, okay, son, let's have a talk. Now, I'm glad that we're talking. You have this little territory, but listen, I'm going to just tell you this right now. If you choose to step out of line, look, I'm going to let you have fun. Go ahead. But if you choose to step out of line, this is what I'm going to do, Habibi. Pah! That's what's going to happen. You're going to get slapped. So you know what? Behave yourself.
So I think that's the dynamic that we're seeing. And
Yeah,
all,
you're right.
all of this is what I call the Trump effect. I mean, all of these are Trump effects that are being rippled out to the rest of the world. And the Trump effects are rippling much further and much faster than anybody ever thought.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to wait and see. Which is
Okay.
why, even though I believe or I feel or my core being is that this truce in Lebanon is not good for Israel on a one-to-one basis. And let's make this clear. My brother lives in Haifa. He was in the bomb shelter, or in his stairwell in this case, at least 4 or 5 times this week. My other son, my youngest son, is now living on the Golan Heights. They've had rockets. He's had rockets go over his head. Even though all of this is not over, and Lebanon is not over. Just the fact that this agreement is being made and the disassociating. By the way, we took out a major Hamas, a major Hezbollah asset in Syria yesterday.
I didn't hear about this. What got taken out in Syria? I didn't even hear the story.
Israel hit a big facility next to Homs in Syria. And again, Israel is saying, we're going to do what we need to do, and now we're going to get the backing to do it. We were publishing pictures of soldiers on the Litani River yesterday. So what I'm trying to say is more than the actual agreement, which is not much different than the 1701, more than the actual agreement, we're seeing more and more of the unraveling of the what they call it, the axis of resistance that Iran has actually put together. That is, I think, as definite as anything else. And thinking about the Hamas leaders sitting in the tunnels right now, they're seeing that they're going to be left alone.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. So let me ask you this. Where do we go with this, Habibi? Because right now, as it stands, as consequential as all of this is, and as advantageous as it may seem, Israel's war is now a lot more real than it ever has been, and the stakes just got way higher. So can you explain to everybody why that's the case? If Israel appears to be in a unique and advantage position based on some really good decisions that have been made, why are we in this position right now as we speak? I think there's a lot to say about this, especially as it relates to Lebanon and what else is going on. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, think about what's happening in Lebanon. I mean, who's playing the game in Lebanon? And think about the rest of the Arab world looking at what's happening in Lebanon and starting to realize what's going on. So I think that will give you the context of what we're doing. The axis of resistance is falling apart. Trump is coming back into office, and I just got a piece that came up that Jared Kushner is back on the ground. Trump by the way, he's got one Jewish son-in-law, and he's got another Lebanese son-in-law. Did you know that?
Yeah, I do know that.
And he played both.
I didn't know how they were related. I didn't know that it was a son-in-law. I knew they were related. I just didn't know what the relationship was.
Both sides very well. The Muslim population in the United States literally voted for him. But if Jared Kushner is heading back to the Middle East and getting that thing together, he has basically unraveled everything that Iran is doing. Now, what's the problem with that? The problem is they don't have anything to lose. And the only card that they have left to play is the nuclear card.
Yep.
And I think to a certain extent, we're going into a higher dangerous mode than ever before on that one. I just now saw an article from the FAA, I think, or some kind of aviation organization that actually published a map that there are no safe routes to fly over the Middle East anywhere.
So can I ask you this question? Because I wasn't even planning on talking to you about this, but I might as well now since you brought it up. Israel appears to be making a real concerted effort to deal with that problem in and of itself. Like even to the point where if you were to go to like any of the publications like Israel Hayom for just 1 second, and you were to go to one section, they talk about, okay, newest flight cancellations, newest flight. There seems to be a massive effort in the Israeli tourism. I forgot the name of the organization. Israeli. They're tied in with closely to Bibi's cabinet. Anyway, with Israel's tourism movement, not movement. What is it? Israeli organization for tour. Oh, what is it called? Habibi, when you go buy the tickets for all of us in the groups to go to different places, it's from the
national parks.
No, not the national parks are ran by the tourism Israeli. What is it? What's the name of the organization?
The Ministry of Tourism.
Ministry of Tourism.
Yeah.
The Ministry of Tourism is becoming very involved in all of this right now. Very, very involved in all of this because they're concerned about this aspect of Israel's economic structure that's dying. And me and you, like we talked about this, like we have some friends right now that are really suffering because when I say not suffering, but they're losing assets. We have a couple of friends that we won't talk about that they're building hotels and they were expected to do very well. Now they're gone. Now the hotels are.
Well, the hotel is closed. We know some tour guides who are not doing anything.
Yeah. So the flight thing is kind of interesting because my understanding is that Biden has made that worse because he's directed the FAA to actually issue NOTAMs that are creating not temporary flight restrictions, but now they're permanently flight restricted in some of these areas.
Well, the problem with tourism and flights is going to be a problem that works through the insurance companies, meaning if there's how do you say official designations. Okay, so I'll give you a classic. If the Federal Aviation, the American administration decides that an airport is dangerous because the runways are too short, okay, and they actually put out a warning that the runways are short, then no insurance company will insure a plane that needs to land on that runway. Okay, so when the administration is saying there's a lot of danger flying over the Middle East, then they give an incentive for insurance companies not to insure airliners over the Middle East, which means either you have to pay more or you don't fly. And I think it was Ryanair that decided that they're not going to fly into Israel for a long period of time now. Now, that impacts the economy. By the way, the same thing is happening with shipping. What the Houthis are doing in the south is not actually stopping all the ships going to the Bab el-Mandeb, but the fact that they're actually jeopardizing some of the ships raises the insurance prices, and that actually makes all the rest of the shipping go around Africa coming in from the other side, and that's enough to tilt in a certain direction. One of the things that I'm seeing, I saw it in the election, I'm seeing in Israeli politics, I'm seeing in the geopolitics, is sometimes there's what I would call the tilting effect. You don't have to change the whole system, or you don't have to change a whole movement. Sometimes you tilt just enough for the electorate to go to this candidate and not to this candidate. I mean, I don't know if you know, California almost became Republican.
I know, bro.
I know. And what I'm trying to say is, I think people are starting to understand the power of the tilt that is much greater, which is why, and maybe, James, this is what we need to do. Born again Christians, Bible reading Christians, you have the power of the tilt. And we used it in this election greatly. I'm thinking about getting into the politics, Republican politics in California now, because it looks like I'm going to be kind of based. And let's see if we can actually use that, because the enemy has been using that tilting power against us for years.
Yep.
Okay, think about how many transgender people are there in the United States of America. How many people? I mean, the percentage is so small. But the noise about transgender has been so great that so many people, and then you've got kids who are accepting trans. I mean, it's 0.02% or something like that. But that's been so great that that has been tilted. By the way, tilting in the other direction. Okay, how many male athletes are there in female sports? The number
Oh,
is relatively small,
yep,
but that
yep.
has been tilted and has been playing such an amazing role in the politics here that it's becoming much more important than the amount of men that are actually wrestling girls in high school. We need to use the tilt effect, and this is something that I've learned from this elections. I'm learning from how Israel is dealing with it. I'm learning with how Donald Trump is dealing with his problems, and Bibi, by the way, he's using the tilt effect.
Yeah, yeah, undoubtedly, undoubtedly, and I think that that's something that cannot be discounted. I mean, there is a substantial aspect to this that I think is very easy to discount, and that does change the name of the game. I think that all of this becomes really, in my mind, really scary to me, because if we did not have the guarantee of God's word that Israel would be okay, then I think I think I'd be just scared to death, because Israel is on the verge of complete and sudden destruction, and we know that will never happen, so we can find peace in it. But the politics of all of this, forget the fragility of the politics. How about the fragility of the infrastructure? I mean, no matter how you're literally so close to either having total victory and dominance, or you're close to just completely falling apart. This agreement that Israel just entered into with Greece, it's huge.
Yeah.
They're now going to start manufacturing their own interception missiles. That's a big deal. That's no small thing.
No, there's more. I mean, we're forgetting, the interaction between Israel and the rest of the Middle East. I don't know if you remember, we talked about this in the past, about a pipeline that's going to go through Cyprus and Greece and connect all of Europe.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, who was it? I think somebody wanted to buy Nord Stream.
Yep.
Someone who was it that made the offer to want to buy Nord Stream? Maybe anybody in our audience, you can remind me. I saw the story come across that there was a legitimate offer that was put out that Putin might actually host.
Don't tell me it was Elon Musk.
No, yeah. Well, the whole MSNBC thing is just hilarious. It's what a crack up what he's doing. No, this if I remember correctly, I don't know if it was Germany or somebody was. I'm almost certain it was somebody.
James, we should put together a sign that says Elon Musk buy us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we should do that. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But I want to remind everybody that we're on this kind of euphoria after the elections and euphoria after the change in what was happening to Israel. But I don't know if you know, but last week the Chabad rabbi,
so sad,
was in Doha, I think it was.
Yeah, it
was kidnapped and murdered by Palestinian factions in Doha.
Yeah,
and his body was found now and is going to be returned. But the Amsterdam pogrom that we saw after the soccer match, and the horrific anti-Semitism that we're seeing even in places like the United States, I think Europe has been lost to the enemy.
Yep. Yeah, I want to talk about that for just a second, but I'm going to interrupt because I normally don't do things like this. At least more and more, I don't do things like this. I used to do it a lot, but I don't do things like this. I'm going to address one of the people in the audience, because I think by addressing one person in the audience, it will address a lot of people. So I'm not going to get into the details of this, but from the little that I can see, Saul to Paul, I'm going to address you directly, and hopefully this will go out to a lot of people. First and foremost, there's nothing that you're going to say in this chat that's going to offend anybody, okay? I want this to go out to everybody. My only request is that everybody remain respectful. We're not using, foul language or anything like that, because we do have kids that pay attention to this. We don't really want to do it. The other thing that I want to simply say is this. I totally, like the Saul to Paul person, and I haven't read a lot of your comments. I just only read a few. I totally respect your point of view when you think that some, and I'm not accusing you of doing this, but when you might refer to us as being fear-mongering or maybe not knowing the whole story or being quick to throw out a bunch of facts. But I just want to make a promise to you because I think this is really, really important. Many of us that are talking to you right now that you see on this show, we've experienced a lot more than anybody is ever going to know about or understand. Like, for example, when you hear David talking about a lot of the stuff that's going on in Israel, understand most of David's life he spent either inside of a tank or commanding a whole group of tanks and commandos. So this is a man who lived these wars, owned these wars, and not only stood aside in the military side, but also was in the diplomatic corps. So there's a lot to understand here. And then you also have to understand that an overwhelming majority of the people that watch this don't know what it's like to be embedded within our culture. I'm going to say that, right? Yeah. They don't know the structure of Semitic languages. You know, my mom and my dad were both born and raised in Egypt. You know, David, of course, his whole life was spent in Israel. You just have to understand that we're looking at this from a different perspective. And so when somebody sees something a little bit differently based on their experience, you have to respect the urgency that we bring to the table. Can I just give an example of this so that maybe you guys will understand? Because all of you guys that are in the audience, you're all very important to us. Even the ones that appear to be upset with what we're saying or might make a comment about, oh, you're fear-mongering or all this. Like, just understand, we love you guys. We're here to minister to you guys. So, like, I just want you to know that. But let me give you the example here, okay? My niece, Elaine, was 3 years old at the time that this story happened. Now, I think she's like 20 or maybe even 21. She's growing up way too fast. I'll just tell you that right now. But she is this beautiful, she's gorgeous. She's a beautiful, amazing, brilliant little girl. She's just remarkable, okay? 3 years old, it was the 4th of July, okay? And I want to just simply say this. On the 4th of July, she had this big, beautiful, puffy dress. And everybody was beginning to play with the sparklers. And as her nephew, as her uncle, I overreacted. Well, at least in the mind of everybody else, I overreacted. But I wasn't overreacting. I jumped in and I said, "Don't touch the sparkler." And I did that really loud. And then I looked to her mom and I said, "Hey, is there any way we can get her into sweatpants or we can, change her clothes?" And then she's looking at me like, "Why, you weirdo?" I said, "Because, look, it's dangerous for her to be playing with sparklers with a puffy dress like that, that's stiff. It's going to get burned, basically, So then my sister-in-law, who's a very godly woman, doesn't react the way a typical woman would react and go, "Let me raise my own kids, leave me alone." She started crying and said, "How in the world could you see that as a single man without any children, but as a mom, I couldn't see that a mile away?" And although I wasn't going to get into the description of why that was so different for me, the one thing that I could tell you now as my audience is you weren't around when I stood there and watched the dead body of a little girl who passed away because she burned herself by playing with a firework, messing with a dress that big. So we look at things slightly different. We do. With respect to the issue of the way I pronounce Hamas, whether or not I say Hamas, because that's what you're probably talking about. When I say Hamas, that's what we say in the Arabic language. My mom and my dad were both born and raised in Egypt. When I say Hamas, that's what we say. We say Hamas. You say Hamas. The media might say Hamas because your tongue is American. You don't speak a Semitic language. We say Hamas on a regular basis. That's how we pronounce it in the Arabic language. That's my second language. David uses the word Hamas or Hamas, and the reason why he does it that way is because that's how you say it in Hebrew. You might notice that I interchange the term Hamas and Hamas because I do like to mock a little bit the terrorist organization by pronouncing the name of their organization the way the Hebrews do it. But that's the variance. So when you hear me say Hamas, It has nothing to do with the term ass. I just want everybody to understand that. The pronunciation,
Really?
the pronunciation is the way it is because that's how we speak in the Arabic language. By the
Can
way,
I
that's
correct
very
you?
verifiable. Huh?
Can I correct you?
Yeah.
Well, if you say khmer, what do you mean?
Well, we'll keep that between me and David and all the other people that speak our language. But so I just want everybody to understand where we're coming from here. And I thought it would be good. To just stop and just explain that for a minute because it's a good lesson for everybody, right? Why we do what we do, and also too, like our goal when we do this stuff, like there's a reason why we pronounce things the way we pronounce things and we do things the way we do because we want to raise your level of functional understanding up. It's part of what helps us get better at what we do, and it helps you get better at what you do when you're educating people and you're communicating with people. So I just wanted to stop and say that. That's all. I wanted to bring that up. David, can I read this to you really quickly? Tell me what you think of this. This is from Pookie. I think this is Pookie. He says Tiffany Trump's husband, Michael Boulos, Massad Boulos, father of Tiffany Trump's husband, David, this relationship goes very deep. U.S., Lebanon, and Turkey's Erdogan, what could come of this? That's a very good question, by the way.
I understand that he's Lebanese, but he's Christian Lebanese.
Yeah, because the name is a Christian name, believe it or not. When you say, Massad Boulos, that's a Christian name. By the way, because Boulos is when we say Boulos, it's Peter, basically. So it's interesting. Anyway, it's a long.
But here's an interesting aspect, and maybe that connects to what we're talking about. He has become an asset for Trump to talk to the Muslim world and the Middle Eastern world, because even though he's Christian and not Muslim, he understands the Muslim mindset. He understands the Middle Eastern culture. And what Jared Kushner is doing on this side, okay, he's doing on that side. And just another kind of hats off to President Trump to being able to use the assets that he has. And another thing that we're seeing this time with Trump 2.0 is that he doesn't really trust the politicians, the professional politicians, and he is using more and more of the people that he trusts directly.
Yeah.
And since we are talking about that, as we are speaking right now, I see President Biden actually explaining that the ceasefire is on. I mean, it's actually announcing the ceasefire in Lebanon right now live.
Isn't it funny how excited he is to announce something like that when I guess I have to shut my mouth. I just, what a clown.
Again, I can't help saying this, and I'm looking to the camera when I'm saying this. We talked about you guys going out to vote, and I want to say thank you.
Amen.
Thank you to all the people who did go out and vote and actually made sure that this balagan, I call it the BBB, Big Biden Balagan, is not going to be in office for very much longer. And again, and here he is, you know, I'm looking at the feed coming in, and he's kind of taking all the credit for this. But I don't think we mentioned one of the reasons Israel is agreeing to a ceasefire that we don't really like in Lebanon is because the Biden administration was literally threatening Israel to allow the UN to pass a Security Council resolution against Israel for what's happening in Lebanon.
Well, let's not mention the ICC. Do you want to talk about that for just a second? Oh my God. The warrant with the ICC. Can we talk about that? By the way, this is really interesting. Gallant was also issued an ICC warrant, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I although I'm not a fan of him, I actually don't really like him all that much because of some of the undermining that he's done. I will give him the bold and courageous card. He just came to the United States.
Yeah. Do we need to explain what happened?
Yeah, please. Let's do that really quickly so people understand what's going on.
The ICC is the International Criminal Court that was put together by the United Nations after World War II in order to be an overhead international court that holds countries and elements accountable for lack of a better word, for crimes against humanity. Okay? It was actually put together as an offshoot or as a retaliation or as a mechanism for the Holocaust not to happen,
Yep.
which is how absurd that the only head of country that was ever brought up on charges by the ICC is the Jewish prime minister. The other thing about the ICC is that they were put in place in order to make sure that there is a judicial system for countries that don't hold themselves accountable. So, for instance, the idea is that if a rogue officer goes crazy and massacres 1,000 people in a little country in the middle of nowhere, okay, usually the country should be the one that will control him and persecute him and find this out. But if the country doesn't do it, if there's not a country to do it, then the ICC believes that they have the mandate to do it.
Yep.
Okay, the thing is this, though. The ICC, in its mandate, made it very clear that a democratic judicial system country that tries its own people and investigates its own crimes does not need an ICC to tell them from outside what is right and what is wrong.
That's right. Matter of fact, they're governed by that rule. That's right.
Exactly. But here they've broken that rule, and they've decided that they have a right and an obligation to look at what happened in Gaza and decide that what Israel is doing is a war crime, enough to instigate arrest warrants against the Prime Minister of Israel, the Minister of Defense, and against Hamad Dif, by the way, who is already, how do you say, sniffing the flowers from the roots. So, and the absurdity is that Assad in Syria killed many more people. Did anybody see an arrest warrant by the ICC? I'm going to tell you, Saddam Hussein, all the Arab despots that have killed and murdered thousands of people. Nobody's ever seen any kind of warrant. No kind of warrant in any of the African nations where things are going terrible. How about the ICC warrant against the Chinese about what they're doing to their Muslim population? I mean, I could go on, and the only ICC warrant ever issued against anybody is against Israel that does have a judicial system and does hold the prime minister accountable, which goes back to the beginning of our conversation.
Yeah. Yep. Man, I think that's the thing that we have to go back to just looking at. Like the only way that you can explain this insanity that we're seeing right now is it's spiritual. I mean, is there any other way to explain it?
And again, there's a lot of biblical stories where the only way to explain discrimination. Look at how the brothers treated Joseph, and I'm just pulling this one out. Okay, there's only one way to explain the discrimination against Joseph, is that God had a plan. God had a reason. Okay, Joseph was in line with God's plan more than the other brothers were, and their discrimination was against him for that. And again, I think I mentioned that one of the things that when people want to say, wait a minute, is there a God in the world? Are the Jewish people a special people? I mean, I was having a conversation with a very famous pastor once, and and the Holy Spirit says, I'm trying to convince him that the Jews are the promised people. I mean, the Jews are a special people in God's eye. The Jews are the apple. And he kept on saying, no, it's all the Christians. It's a Christian church. And I said, no, I mean, and he says, how do you know? I mean, what makes the Jews so special? And I said, well, look. Have you ever seen
any question? Can not to interrupt you, but what a question.
Yeah.
And go ahead, please.
But and I say to him, have you ever seen any people that Satan has had so much against down, that have been persecuted and hated from on a satanic level? I said, Satan realizes that there is a God. Satan realizes that there's a Jewish people. Satan realizes that Israel represents God's plan. Satan knows that. And as a result of that, all those arrows are pointed at him. If you want proof that Israel is the apple of God's eyes, look at how Israel is being treated as opposed to all the rest of the nations in the world.
So true. So true.
I mean, here's the proof.
Yep. Yep. It's just absolutely amazing. And I think that more than ever, we need to be people who are dedicated to and committing to not just praying for Israel, but praying for Jews worldwide.
Well,
Because we're watching it come to life.
again, I can't help but in this afterglow of the Trump, again, I'm saying we as Christians here in America, and again, it's weird for me to say the we as, but I'm putting myself in that. We had a role to play 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago? 2 weeks.
Yeah, 3.
3 weeks ago.
Wait.
We had a role to play
Oh, yeah, 3. Yeah, almost 3 weeks ago. Exactly 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks from today.
No, not last Tuesday. The Tuesday before that, we were online at night. Yeah, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
3 weeks ago.
No, 3.
And we had a role to play back then to impact what is happening. And I'm glad to say enough of us did to make an impact. And again, we need to keep doing that. We need to keep pushing that. And again, I'm going to say this. One of my convictions or one of my decisions is, while I'm here in California, to get into politics, to get into the system, to start playing a role in your school system, in your neighborhood, and in your local political system, to play a role in that, to be a part of what's going on, and to continue being God's tool. Because what is happening? Look at how much the election has even impacted everything we talked about today has impacted what has happened in Israel. You can see it now on the ground.
Yep. By the way, did we ever talk about this? Do you know who else showed up who did really helped us, especially in Pennsylvania? That was a shock. Like, we were all shocked by it. Like, we did not know. We didn't even anticipate it. There was no way of even seeing it coming. Talk about God doing something supernatural. The Amish population showed up.
I never heard. Yeah, I never knew that.
Because they normally don't vote at all. And I don't know if anybody heard this, but bro, they showed up big.
Did not.
Like, in many of the contended counties, or the non-contended counties, the counties that they thought would be just solid blue, there'd be no problem, were all just voted out because of the Amish.
Ooh.
And they don't do it by policy. Like, you get shunned if you get involved in any of that stuff.
No, the leadership made a leadership decision.
It's a massive Quaker thing, bro. And they all those guys all got together and said, they're going to interfere with our way of life. We need to vote for Trump.
Which is true.
It's just wild.
Well, that's
just wild.
I'm glad that enough Christians said the same thing.
Oh, thank you, Jesus. I honestly thought we were going to lose.
Oh, I did.
When I say that, meaning there were too many Christians that were saying that, look, there are guys right now, bro, that are teaching Bible prophecy. I'm not going to point out anybody that are actually saying that Trump is the Antichrist. Like, come on. He's not even from Europe. We're not even in the tribulation. It's crazy.
So what are we praying for this week?
Okay, let's talk about this. A couple things that I specifically want to ask people to pray for. Number one, please pray for President Trump's safety.
Yeah.
I think that it really affects a lot. He has to be safe. We got to pray for that. Pray, I'm asking, this is going to sound a little crazy. Pray that God would inspire the hearts of people that are in our local area. This is not related to what we've been talking about. It's kind of a separate thing. Pray that God would inspire the hearts of people that are in our local area to who are wealthy. They don't even have to be wealthy, but people that can move needles to give to Calvary Chapel Signal Hill. That's crazy when I say that, okay? But I'm going to say that right now because I think this is really important. We have an opportunity to buy a massive building.
Cool. What's going on?
That would make a huge difference for our church. It would literally allow us to build a sanctuary 6 times the size of the one that we have. It would give us a much larger studio, including give us the opportunity to build you your own studio, David.
Amen.
It would open up the door for a a homeschool co-op to make that place their permanent home. And we have this opportunity to be able to buy this building potentially, but we have to do it quickly, and a couple of miracles have to happen. Number one, the terms of the deal have to be perfect. They have to be just right. It would be the perfect place. And then the other thing that I would ask is, we need big donations. So if the Lord puts it upon your heart, especially as we enter the end of the year, and anybody feels led to do it, man, I'll tell you, it would be a blessing. We're just praying. We're praying for the Lord to provide for us in a very special way. We're asking him to show up because we have this incredible opportunity to buy this building. And, we're not talking about something that's a few $100,000. We're talking about, in the millions. Even if the building were to be given to us, we're still in the millions of dollars to remodel it the way that we want to. But I will tell you this, and this is why I'm asking you all to pray. And if you know anybody who might want to donate, please, or to help coordinate that, please do, because we could make a massive difference. If you can imagine the footprint that we have now, we could literally massively expand that footprint by doing this. So please, you guys, pray about it. I wanted to put it out to you guys. I haven't never done that before. But we would definitely appreciate. I love seeing the praying hands in the comments. It's so cool. We definitely would appreciate the prayers, because God hears the prayers and he puts it upon people's hearts and he provides. So that's what we need the most, is we need just a ton of people praying hard, especially in the season that we're in, and then just praying that the Lord open up that door, because it would make a big difference even for Israel, believe it or not, because it allows us to become more of a base of operations to just bless God's people. And so it could be a great opportunity, and we're really praying that the Lord open up that door.
What's the time scale on this?
We need to act within the next month or so.
Okay.
It's that significant. So, and yes, and it would be great because we could reduce Sunday services from 3 to 2, and we could build anywhere from a 700 to 1,000 seat sanctuary, which is something we would really love to do.
Yeah. So
please just pray for this, guys. And if you know anybody that wants to get involved, maybe contribute, we definitely look. This is a big issue for a big God to handle, and it's beyond our capacity to be able to do, which is why I know that God can do it, because it's impossible for us to do it. So I just wanted to bring that up to pray for. David, anything you have? Obviously, we want to pray for you to have a safe trip back.
Well, I'm coming back to, our whole world is kind of topsy-turvy. We've got a lot of major decisions to make about when we're going back to Israel, what we're going to do. There's a couple of things up in the air. I need to sit down and talk to you a little bit and kind of figure out a couple of things. Pray for the young couple that just got married that are going to be a part of our life, and pray for my boys. I mean, I spent last week with Yarden, and I've been talking to
Yarden. He's a great, what a great kid. I mean, I'm not going to call him kid. Well, he's a young man, but
he's still
I really like him.
He's still searching. He's still mixed up, and still complicated.
Did he get his looks from his mom?
I guess so. Yeah, I mean,
because he's a handsome young man. I'm not trying to be weird or anything. I'm just saying I really like him.
Well, but he's following the wrong rabbi.
Yeah, I know. And we
know what rabbi he should be following. Rabbi Jesus.
I know. And he'll find Rabbi Jesus. He will.
Amen. So pray that Yarden will find Rabbi Jesus, and Dolev will too. Dolev's living up on the Golan Heights now, and the rockets are going over his head. All the ones coming from Syria. So.
Well, that'll bring him to Jesus.
Yeah.
And
my mom's flying back to Israel as we speak. So it's older they get, the harder it gets for them to do this kind of travel. And so that's,
there's nothing easy about it. I don't even know how you do half the things that you do when we're in country. I don't even get it.
Well, I told you the last time I did a tour, I made a mistake and decided to walk up the side of Herodian.
Oh my goodness, man.
And it's a massive, 20-story steps up, and in the middle is Herod's tomb. And me and Herod almost got laid down on the same place. I thought I was going to die on Herod's tomb.
I don't think people realize how big that mountain is, man.
Well, people don't realize how much people used to walk and climb stairs. I mean, they all
Yeah.
had massive calf muscles. I mean,
Yeah. Oh, had to have. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
So, and next week we'll be online in studio.
Yeah, in the studio. I thought you were going to be in the studio with me this week. We had a bunch of cheese and crackers set up for you and
There you
salami.
go.
Nice,
So
fancy food.
You're going to have to eat all the cheese and crackers this time.
Oh, what a shame.
Yeah.
I'm so sad. All right. Well, David, you want to pray for us, bro?
Yes.
Okay.
Avinu Shabashamayim, thank you for having your fingers in the porridge of moving things around the way they need to be moved, for getting people out of their couch and going to vote, for allowing Trump to be the mechanism, the tool, and whatever you're going to need to change things in the direction that you need to change. Just
Yes.
thank you, and give him the strength. Put your iron dome over him right now, because we know that they're looking for him. But put your iron hands over Israel today, and
Yes.
this very, very critical moment. And again, it sounds weird to be saying this week after week, but we are at another critical moment. Put your hands over your people and show them your love. And we just pray that this Christian love that I'm feeling now in the United States after what happened, in this return to Christian values that we feel reverberating through this country, will seep down on Israel and be an impact. And please, yes, Israel needs Iron Dome, and yes, Israel needs American veto power in the United Nations, but Israel needs your son, Jesus, more than anything. And I pray, God, bring Jesus to Israel as quickly as possible.
Yes.
And we pray for all of us, for our families, that they will know you and rely on you. And for all of us to have an amazing, amazing, glorifying path in this world in front of you. And we pray this in the name of your son, Yeshua. Amen.
Amen and amen. We love you guys. God bless you. And as I said before, keep praying. Lots of great opportunities on the front. And I mean, there's so much that I believe the Lord wants to do, and I'm really excited about it all. So, David, any last thing?
Well, be in tune with what's happening. I mean, your president just announced a ceasefire, and let's see how that works out. We've got 60 days. This is going to be a critical 60 days. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm kind of worried because I've actually had at least 4 or 5 ceasefires in Lebanon. So, yeah, I don't know.
Whew.
Yeah.
A lot going on. All right, folks. We love you. God bless you. Keep fighting the good fight. Shalom.